was widely reported in the press as an accidental overdose. But when the autopsy report became available, the verdict was suicide.
35 worst psychedelic addicts in Hollywood history. Here goes my vote. Hollywood's glitz and glam hides some dark secrets. Ever wondered which stars had a wild side? Buckle up as we dive into the 35 worst psychedelic addicts in Hollywood history. From shocking revelations to tragic ends, this list will leave you stunned. Number 35. Susan Sarandon. Did you believe Susan Sarandon is a fan of psychedelics? Her candid confessions about mushrooms will leave you speechless. Actress Susan Sarandon candidly discussed her history of psychedelic use in an interview with the Daily Beast. "I'm not new to the idea of mushrooms," she said. She went on to mention her friendship with Timothy Leary and how she prefers to do drugs outdoors. You want to be prepared and not have responsibilities. It does remind you of your space in the universe, your place in the universe, and reframe things for you. I think you can have some very profound experiences, she said. We definitely agree with Susan's sentiments here and appreciate her transparency and insights on the subject.
Have you ever smoked pot with Snoop Dogg? Or
Yes.
would you consider doing it?
Yes.
You have. I have too. Well, I don't have to smoke it. When he smokes it, you get high because he fills the room.
He came to spin for something in New York, and I must say we had a very fun time.
Number 34, Jane Mansfield. From Hollywood starlet to LSD experimenter, Jane Mansfield's story is full of shocking twists you won't see coming. More famous today for her gruesome car crash death than for any of the movies she made while alive, Jane Mansfield was, in some sense, the most successful busty blonde hired by a studio as a Marilyn Monroe copycat. Mansfield's satirical copy of Monroe's act was so spot on that it helped to hasten the end of the blonde bombshell, paradoxically endangering both actresses' careers. But she did manage to star in Hollywood's first rock and roll movie, Hollywood's first postmodern comedy, Meet the Beatles, experiment with LSD, cheerfully align herself with Satanism for the photo op, and much more.
Can't think of the others, and then there was Bobo and then Rocky. And all because you can't forget George Schmidlap.
Number 33, Gary Busey. Gary Busey's near-death experience with drugs is a wild tale of addiction and survival that's hard to believe. Gary Busey got arrested in 1995 due to a near-death drug overdose. His drugs of choice were cocaine and marijuana. He said, "When you do drugs like I did, they become the number one relationship in your life." His dealer told him that doing cocaine would make him more creative. Since 1995, Gary wrote extensively about his drug addiction and the term freedom, which stands for facing real exciting energy, developing out of miracles. Busey first gained fame for his Oscar-nominated role in 1978's The Buddy Holly Story, and more recently appeared in such films as The Firm and Under Siege. The actor has a history of drug problems. In an interview in February 1988, Busey said, "I've been clean for 2 years and 9 months. Until then, I was so wired I could set up a Ferris wheel all by myself in 10 minutes. An outspoken critic of motorcycle helmet legislation, Busey was nearly killed in December 1988 in a motorcycle crash. He underwent brain surgery for blood clots lodged between his brain and his skull, but showed no signs of brain damage."
As actor Gary Busey's star continued to rise in Hollywood, so does his dangerous behavior. He says in his autobiography, Buseyisms, the addict inside of him was unleashed one night after a man who called himself the Devil showed up at his door dressed like a Beverly Hills rodeo clown with a little blue box containing a chunk of cocaine with his initials engraved in the middle. I didn't even know you could do that.
Number 32, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee's secret life involving cocaine might just change the way you see the martial arts legend forever. People respected Bruce Lee as one of the most prominent martial artists globally. People would be surprised to know that he might have abused drugs based on his, authenticated by experts. He asked star actor Robert Baker to give him a large amount of cocaine. One time, Bruce Lee put in an order, but then rejected it by telling his seller to forget about the stuff. He continued to explain he did not need the drugs during his training. Bruce Lee died in 1973 from taking a prescription painkiller, Egogistic, that allegedly put him in a coma that eventually led to his death.
In the past couple of years alone, there are now even more stories floating around about the life of Bruce Lee. This was the result of auction letters from his friend Robert Baker, whose letters sent to Bruce Lee during the 1970s had some startling findings. The Robert Baker letters are now available online and hint at drug use by Bruce Lee during this period.
Number 31, Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid's shocking daily cocaine habit in the 80s will make you rethink everything you know about the actor. The Day After Tomorrow star was enjoying his fame in the 80s and 90s, and during this time, he began cocaine. Dennis shared, "The drugs were included on some movie budgets, and I was doing pretty much on a daily basis during the 80s. Dennis Quaid admitted to doing 2 grams of cocaine a day. "I liked coke. I liked it to go out," he told them. He saw himself dead one time, and that experience motivated him to go into rehab. He was able to stay off of drugs, but admitted that he missed doing cocaine. He checked into rehab in the 90s, right when his career started to take off.
You've been pretty open about the fact that you were a cocaine addict for a
Yeah,
while.
right.
How's that affected your life?
I grew up in the 60s and the 70s, and there was a completely different attitude about it back then, and even in some movie budgets. But, I kept roaring on. I was basically doing cocaine.
Number 30, Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor consumed so many pills, it's a miracle she survived. Her story of addiction is truly jaw-dropping. Elizabeth Taylor, one of the greatest actresses of Hollywood's golden age, struggled with drug and alcohol dependency for years. Hollywood legend Elizabeth Taylor consumed so many pills in the 80s that a medical expert who reviewed her files assumed the patient was dead because the dosages were incompatible with life. That led to the discovery of just how much the Cleopatra actress was taking. 3 of the actress's doctors wrote a combined 1,000 prescriptions for 28 drugs between 1983 and 1988, including tranquilizers, sleeping pills, and painkillers. Number 29, Judy Garland. Judy Garland's tragic addiction story started at just 17. The Wizard of Oz star's struggles will break your heart. By 17, she was addicted to barbiturates, amphetamines, and sleeping pills. Her goal with taking all this stuff was to stay thin and pale. She died in 1969 from an overdose of barbiturates. She was introduced to pep pills by her mother, who insisted the Wizard of Oz actor take them in order to give an energetic performance. Over the years, as Garland became a bigger star, she was prescribed pills by MGM studio doctors to control both her weight and her energy levels. "There's no place like home." Was this the line stuck in Judy Garland's mind when she tragically passed away following a drug overdose? Our beloved Dorothy was one of the most widely acclaimed performers of the golden age. Back when MGM used real lions to film the classic credit sequence. An unfinished memoir acted as a goodbye letter, compiling all the troubles Garland went through: nervous breakdowns, suicide attempts, and pill overdoses, mostly slipped away unnoticed. Although the cause of death was ruled out as an incautious self-dosage of barbiturates, many were those who view it as a form of suicide. Garland was 47 at the time.
It's clear that she, over a long period of time, used multiple prescription medications. The most significant of these is amphetamine.
Number 28, Carrie Fisher. Carrie Fisher's wild adventures with LSD and shrooms are tales straight out of a sci-fi movie. You won't believe it. This Star Wars actress was no stranger to drug use and actually suffered from bipolar disorder and addiction. But according to her, LSD was never a problem when it came to her addictions. Her husband at the time, Paul Simon, a accompanied her while having these eventful experiences with shrooms and other hallucinogens. I was probably in the desert. I had one where I was with Paul and my coat caught fire. We laughed at the flames. I had a lot of fun on acid and mushrooms and all that stuff. It was a part of my life when I was very young. As much as we appreciate the fun she had on them, we recommend only partaking in a safe, fire-free environment.
Carrie Fisher lived an incredibly unique life. She was the daughter of celebrities who gained iconic fame herself in one of the most beloved movies of all time. But behind Princess Leia was a tragic story of drug addiction, bipolar disorder, and sour relationships. She started smoking weed when she was 13, although she quit the drug 6 years later on the set of Star Wars. But then during production...
Number 27, Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers' death from a prescription overdose is as shocking as her career was legendary. Here's the untold story. Comedian Joan Rivers died on an operating table from low blood oxygen from a treatment of an alleged prescription drug overdose. She has said in the past that she's taken everything, including cocaine. It was just so stupid. Overdosing doesn't necessarily involve illegal drugs. Prescription pills did the trick for Joan Rivers, right under the noses of the doctors that were supposed to look after her. Back in 2014, Rivers was scheduled for a routine throat surgery when things spiraled out of control. The propofol injected in her body as an anesthetic proved too strong, and the star succumbed due to a heart attack. Propofol was the same drug that claimed the life of Michael Jackson. It seems that not even celebs are safe from the rare mishaps of modern medicine. Let's take a moment and pay homage to the trailblazer that Joan Rivers was for the women of showbiz. She was the first to host a late-night show on national television and ranked amongst the best comedians of her time. Joan Rivers passed away at the age of 81.
It has been 8 months now since Joan Rivers died, and her daughter Melissa is speaking to us exclusively.
In my opinion, it was 100% preventable.
Number 26, Stacy Dash. Stacy Dash's drug addiction began at just 8 years old. Her heartbreaking journey through addiction is truly shocking. Stacy Dash has revealed that she first tried drugs when she was just 8 years old, and she opened up about her pill addiction in a new interview. During an appearance on the Dr. Oz show, which aired on Thursday, the actress, 54, revealed that her parents were drug addicts and that her mother gave her her first line of cocaine when she was 16 years old. Looking back on her past, the former Fox News contributor also told Dr. Mehmet Oz that she was molested at the age of 4. Stacy Dash talked candidly with Dr. Drew about her addiction. She claimed to take 18 to 20 Vicodin pills a day, costing between $5,000 and $10,000 a month.
How bad did this addiction get?
I was taking 18 to 20 pills a day.
18 to 20 Vicodin a day?
Yeah.
That's expensive.
Yeah. I lost everything.
Number 25, Ken Kesey. Ken Kesey, the man behind One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, had a psychedelic journey that's out of this world. In the 60s, it made complete sense for an author to write something as blistering as One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then to turn around and start riding around in a psychedelic bus while handing out acid to unsuspecting squares. Kesey's love of dropping acid began when he took part in the CIA's MK Ultra program, and from there, he hit the ground running.
Never trust a prankster, because I will eventually lie to you, even though I may not want to. If I say one thing today, it may not work. Go ahead, would you repeat that again?
Number 24, Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson's battle with addiction almost cost him his career. Discover the dark side of this Hollywood icon. Samuel L. Jackson had his fair share of drug addiction before his career took off. He landed the role in Jungle Fever a couple of weeks after leaving rehab treatment. He ended up passing out drunk after cooking up cocaine in front of his 8-year-old daughter and wife during filming. He dibbled and dabbled in marijuana and LSD, but drinking was his thing. When movie roles didn't come his way like he wanted, he would binge and do acid. Despite all his issues, he would miraculously still show up on time to movie sets and be able to perform his acting duties satisfactorily. Many would call him a functional drug addict. After getting high at the age of 15, he got tired of it and quit on his own.
and I was going to play this drug addict in the movie, a crackhead, and I was like, well, shit, I've already done the research. I guess I know what's happening. By the time I finished, I shot Jungle Fever. I started Jungle Fever. I was 2 weeks out of rehab. So I really didn't need makeup. And I was still detoxing. So the person that you see on screen was who I was.
Number 23, James Hayden. James Hayden's portrayal of a heroin addict mirrored his real life in a tragic way. His story is haunting. James Hayden portrayed a heroin addict in the critically acclaimed American Buffalo, co-starring Al Pacino. He died of a heroin overdose during the play's production. The 29-year-old actor was about to become a big star, said Arvin Brown, director of the play. I'm as convinced of that as I've been convinced of anything since I directed Meryl Streep some years ago and had the same feeling about her for many of the same reasons. Number 22, Bridget Andersen. Bridget Andersen's fall from child star to heroin addict is a tragic tale of Hollywood's darker side. The name Bridget Andersen adds up to the impressive list of child stars who took one last trip down Drug Alley. Andersen made a lasting impression in Hollywood by playing the title role in the 1982 comedy Savannah Smiles. She was 7 at the time, and not even extreme pessimists would have imagined such a destiny for the cut runway girl. Andersen's ballet with drugs started at the same time her acting career failed to progress. As it often happens, heroin offered a simple escape from the harsh reality for the former child star. The American actress was 21 when her commitment to stay clean backfired. Working at a food store probably made her cherish toxic thoughts regarding her failure to become a Hollywood big shot.
When I was little, my mom and dad, they used to read Hansel and Gretel to me when I was little, and I used to really get into the place and feel like I was Gretel. And now I have a little sister who's 4, and now I read it to her, and she feels the same way.
Number 21, George Sanders. George Sanders' suicide note is one of the most chilling farewells in Hollywood history. His story will stun you. Best known as the voice behind Shere Khan in Disney's The Jungle Book in 1967, George Sanders was a man who had everything. 4 wives, including Zsa Zsa Gabor and her sister Magda, 7 psychiatrists, more than 90 film appearances, and an Oscar. But all that wasn't enough to keep him interested. On April 25, 1972, at the age of 65, Sanders swallowed 5 bottles of Nembutal in a hotel room in Castelldefels, Spain, and took his final curtain. He left a legacy in the form of his suicide note. By early May, when the message had made headlines all over, the world knew it had a classic farewell on its hands. Dear world, Sanders wrote in part, I am leaving because I am bored.
Maybe somebody's name is Butler.
You have a point. An idiotic one, but a point.
Number 20, Corey Haim. One of the 2 Coreys, Haim was a quintessential teen idol of the 1980s. However, the Canadian actor failed to keep up with the success of his first gigs and soon found himself in debt and facing only closed doors. Drug addictions were a constant in Corey's life, and no one raised an eyebrow when his mother discovered him dead one day. Haim overdosed on a bizarre collage of pills that reflects his need to numb both physical pain and mental torment.
Lucas, everybody was like, oh, he's so cute, he's such a little nerdy kind of guy, and his Silver Bullet, I was in a chair, and The Time to Live, I had muscular dystrophy, I portrayed a kid who was dying.
Number 19, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Few drug-related deaths were as misfortunate as that of Philip Seymour Hoffman. We lost the highly acclaimed Oscar-winning actor at the hands of an acute mixed drug intoxication in February 2014. A friend found him dead and with a syringe in his arm in the bathroom of his Manhattan apartment. Heroin, cocaine, benzodiazepines, and amphetamine. Hoffman overdosed on those drugs, although it is still unclear what made the cocktail so deadly. The news came as a shock in Hollywood, as fans were still sobering up after Heath Ledger. Hoffman had a self-confessed history of substance abuse that stretched 23 years into the past. He was kicked out of the house by his family and was living alone at the time. Some say that Hoffman's Hollywood portfolio was accurate to indicate the actor's struggles. You don't make a name by playing lowlifes, eccentrics, and other misfits unless you have a dark side to exploit.
So this was drugs or alcohol or both? Yes, all that stuff, yeah. Anything I can get my hands on. yeah, I liked it all.
Number 18, Andy Dick. The former news radio and less than perfect star has been more famous in recent years for his substance abuse and brushes with the law than for his once bright career. Comedian Andy Dick has a long history with drugs. During the height of his career, he would get arrested for cocaine possession and marijuana. He enrolled in a treatment program so he wouldn't go to jail one time. He was known for doing a lot of crazy stuff like urinating on a beach and exposing himself to minors and adult women. Aside from his crazy behavior, his addiction case is a classic one.
My name is Andy Dick for the Starving Artists Project. The main thing that I've struggled with over the years as an actor and really as a person is the abuse of drugs and alcohol. Right now, I'm doing phenomenally.
Number 17, Dax Shepard. The actor has always been open about his struggles with substance addiction. At 18, Shepard began battling an addiction to alcohol and drugs, particularly cocaine, that lasted many years. Dax Shepard has 16 years of sobriety, but admitted that he relapsed. So he keeps drug tests around his house so his wife can grab them and test him anytime she wants. She hasn't done it yet. His addiction derived from an ATV accident and purchased some pills that got him hooked.
You've always been open and honest, and recently you were open about your lapse in sobriety after 16 years. And I know that must have been really hard because you could have just tried to deal with it and not let anyone know that happened and just go right back to your sobriety. That must have been hard to admit.
Yeah, I did not want to at all. I had all kinds of bizarre fears, like, I have sponsors on my show. Is that something that could cost me money financially?
Number 16, Jamie Lee Curtis. Popular actress Jamie Lee Curtis attempted to hide her resentments in life by misusing drugs and alcohol. Jamie Lee Curtis is getting candid about her decade-long struggle with substance abuse. I was an opiate addict, and I liked a good opiate buzz. The Everything Everywhere All at Once Oscar winner. And if fentanyl was available, as easily available as it is today on the street, I'd be dead, she added. Sobriety, continued Curtis, made it all crystal clear. Because I'm so hyper aware of what the alternative is, she said, noting that her brother Nicholas died at 21 of a heroin overdose.
We say you're only as sick as your secrets. I was sick. I was very, very sick. And yet no one knew it. Because I was fabulous, because that's the nature of addiction, is that you can hide it.
Number 15, Edie Sedgwick. Edie Sedgwick died in 1971 of a potent mix of barbiturates and alcohol. Edith Minturn Sedgwick Post was an American actress, model, and socialite who was one of Andy Warhol's superstars, starring in several of his short films during the 1960s. Her prominence led to her being dubbed an It Girl, while Vogue magazine named her a Youth Quaker. Sedgwick broke with Warhol in 1966 and attempted to forge an independent acting career. However, her mental health deteriorated from drug abuse, and she struggled to complete the semi-autobiographical film Chow, Manhattan. Sedgwick abstained from drugs and alcohol after meeting her future husband, Michael Post, and completed filming Chow, Manhattan in 1971. Post and Sedgwick married in July 1971. She died 4 months later of an overdose at age 28.
I must say I liked the introduction to drugs I received. I was a good target for the scene. I blossomed into a healthy young drug addict.
Number 14, Richard Pryor. Richard Pryor is widely recognized as one of the greatest comedy icons the world has had to offer. But that in no way means it was smooth sailing when it came to Pryor's career and personal life. For decades, the comedian and actor struggled with drugs and alcohol, and those close to him have gone on to share stories about Pryor's substance abuse problems since his passing in 2005. Richard Pryor burned 50% of his body in a freebase explosion. A 1978 People article says he was snorting about $100 worth of cocaine per day. During this time, he was beating his wife and getting arrested a lot. One time, sprinkle my ashes in about 2 pounds of cocaine, then short me up.
I snorted cocaine for about 15 years with my dumb ass. I must have snorted up Peru. I could have bought Peru all the shit I snorted.
Number 13, James Coburn. Coburn took LSD several years before it became popular and well known. There was a doctor who was experimenting with its effects, and he got involved as one of the subjects. This was before his acting career had even started to take off. I had a lot of trips. It was all very interesting. When Coburn's acting in a movie, there's a strange feeling sometimes that he's kidding the movie, as if there's some level of subtle self-parody going on. In his biographical dictionary of film, David Thompson observes, increasingly, he was the best thing in his movies, smiling privately, seeming to suggest that he was in contact with some profound source of amusement.
We were talking about the Far Eastern philosophies. I was just wondering if you ever practiced Kung Fu or any of the other martial arts.
Kung Fu, yes. Bruce Lee was a great friend of mine, and we used to work out together for a long time.
Number 12, John Belushi. John Belushi was another great actor we lost prematurely following a drug overdose. On March 5, 1982, Hollywood's giant entertainment mechanism came to an abrupt halt. Everyone initially thought it was a joke when news broke that Belushi was found dead in his hotel room at the Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles. John injected what is known in slang as a speedball, a mixture of heroin and cocaine. Unfortunately, he miscalculated the potency of his dosage and paid the ultimate price. Fate can be ironic. Belushi had just filmed the opening sequence of the show Police Squad, where he appeared face down in a swimming pool. The producers obviously deleted the scene, which never got the chance to air. John Belushi died at the age of 33. He was eventually awarded a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2004.
Obviously was looking at my hands or something at the moment that John swooped in and took it. So I immediately said, "Belushi, did you take my Coke?" No. What are you talking about? What Coke? What?
Number 11, Dana Plato. The actress who played adorable Kimberly Drummond in Different Strokes ended up so badly, her death came as a relief to fans. After leaving the TV show that launched her, Dana found it impossible to fit other roles. Having plastic surgery and posing for Playboy didn't help either. Plato had a bad run that included the death of her mother, a divorce, and a financial scheme that left her without any money. Desperate to make ends meet, she took regular jobs before attempting to rob a video store. Plato going off the rails naturally became front-page material, and the former child star embraced prescription drugs as a refuge. Just one day after an interview on The Howard Stern Show, 34-year-old Dana committed suicide by overdosing on painkiller Lortab and muscle relaxant Soma.
It was widely reported in the press as an accidental overdose. But when the autopsy report became available, the verdict was suicide.
The Reels program says Dana's troubled life as a child actor may have led her to substance abuse.
Her addictive personality made her overindulge pretty early on.
Number 10, Brittany Murphy. Brittany Murphy shocked everyone when she left the stage of life after only 32 years. As it often happens with celebs that die prematurely, Murphy's death was caught in a spiral of false beliefs and conspiracy theories. The wildest claim that wanted to clear Brittany's name was that she contracted pneumonia because of toxic mold developing in her house. We all know what happened. The paranoid star became a recluse hooked on prescription drugs. Murphy's dirty Hollywood mansion turned into the perfect venue for heavy drug use. It was only a matter of time before a drop filled the glass for her.
Thing, and she's constantly taken advantage of over and over and over, you know, and Gad, my whole life. But now I'm trying to be better, and fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me.
Number 9, Jack Nicholson. At this point, no one really needs to explain Nicholson's reputation as the maniac of Hollywood. But after starring in seminal psychedelic films like Easy Rider, The Shining, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it makes sense that the actor believes that the first time he took LSD, he saw the face of God. In California, as the 60s began to fully take shape, Nicholson and his actor buddies Harry Dean Stanton and Bruce Dern began to experiment with drugs, namely cocaine, marijuana, and LSD. Nicholson has never been afraid of drugs and their mood-altering ability. In fact, most of the time, he's reveled in it, shared the notion vicariously, and even partaken in hallucinatory drugs while rafting with his kids. Soon enough, the drugs became less recreational and more habitual, with the star even naming his different quality of drugs upstairs and downstairs drugs. The upstairs batch was reserved for friends and lovers, while the downstairs drugs were kept for guests. Their narcotics would begin to weigh heavily on the man's career and health, yet it has never seemingly deterred Nicholson. Perhaps because his attitude has always stayed the same towards his own control over the drugs, or perhaps it's because one acid trip changed his life forever. Either way, for good or for bad, without Jack Nicholson taking the trip, we never would have seen such a vibrant legend.
I said, Mr. Nicholson, I just wanted to tell you I'm extremely excited to be working with you again. It's a great pleasure. And Jack goes, did we work together before? And he says, yes, we did. And he says, what film did we do together? He says, well, we did Missouri Breaks. Nicholson goes, oh my God, Missouri Breaks. Jesus Christ, we were out of our minds on that film. Holy shit. Jesus Christ, it's a wonder I'm alive. My God, there was so much drugs going on, and we were stoned out of our minds. Holy shit. And just then, he folds the pants that he's just taken off over his arm, and an eighth of coke drops out onto the floor.
Number 8, Alan Ladd. The actor who essayed the protagonist in The Great Gatsby in 1949, Alan Ladd, passed away due to a sedative overdose. His death, due to cerebral edema caused by an acute overdose of alcohol, a barbiturate, and 2 tranquilizers containing at least 2 depressants, was ruled accidental. Ladd suffered from chronic insomnia and regularly used sleeping pills and alcohol to induce sleep. While he had not taken a lethal amount of any one drug, the combination apparently caused a fatal interaction.
What's that mean to you, Shane? I've heard about you.
Number 7, Chris Farley. There was nothing to laugh about when comedy actor Chris Farley died following a drug overdose. History has a cynical way of repeating itself, and Farley died at the same age and in similar circumstances as another cast member of NBC's sketch comedy show Saturday Night Live. Remember John Belushi? Farley was found dead in his Chicago apartment on December 18, 1997, only 3 weeks after he made a final guest appearance on SNL. An autopsy would later reveal that Farley overdosed on cocaine and morphine. It's always sad when a man that made you laugh your pants off dies so tragically. However, Chris Farley's erratic lifestyle gave away some valuable hints it was going in that direction. Farley sought help at least 12 times to contain his addiction and battle obesity.
Addiction and cancer are 2 diseases. You know, but with cancer, everyone's all in. You got the family, the friends, the local community, there's funding, there's health care, everyone's trying to make this person. Addiction is it's such a lonely disease. And at least it was when Chris was going through it.
Number 6, Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce was known for his obscene but insightful comedy about race, politics, sex, and other controversial topics. Just like in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, the real Lenny Bruce was often arrested for his blue comedy, which broke obscenity laws in the various cities where he performed. Bruce's frequent arrests for obscenity made it difficult for him to find clubs that were willing to book him, which meant that he struggled financially for years. After he was arrested for obscenity in New York City in 1964, Lenny Bruce felt his career was over, and his drug use increased. Lenny Bruce died in real life after a morphine overdose, found naked in his Hollywood Hills home with syringes and a burned bottle cap near his body.
Okay, now we're going to leave you now with $375,000 stone, aptly named. Then we have some marijuana. They found 8 marijuana cigarettes that's worth $2.25 million on the...
Number 5, Frances McDormand. Frances McDormand's profound experiences with LSD might surprise you. Her story is a rare glimpse into her private life. Most people know McDormand as the plucky sheriff from Fargo, but did you know that she really enjoyed LSD? The actress says that the drug is a profound experience and hopes that one day the government can figure out this whole legalization thing. Number 4, Cary Grant. Cary Grant's over 100 LSD trips in the 50s were revolutionary. His sort of psychedelic therapy will astonish you. Taking it back in the 1950s, this actor was a star in the public eye, as a true embodiment of classiness and success. Many people were shocked when he publicly declared that LSD psychotherapy saved his life. He initially went to see Dr. Mortimer Hartman after his wife, Betsy Drake, swore by the LSD treatments he was offering. In those days, psychedelic research was still allowed, and the stigma surrounding those substances had not quite developed in full force yet. Regardless, the story goes that Grant had over 100 LSD trips and experienced a mental health breakthrough. And with that number, we are not at all surprised.
Well, greetings, Yuki Dookie.
Number 3, Marilyn Monroe. On August 4th, 1962, at age 36, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her bedroom in the Brentwood section of Los Angeles. Her death was ruled a suicide from an overdose of barbiturates and chloral hydrate. However, her death is still a mystery, and many are convinced that she was murdered by organized crime, the FBI, or the CIA. There are numerous conspiracy theories. An autopsy showed no trace of any drugs in her stomach, but did show a purplish discoloration of the colon. Toxicology studies found a massive amount of phenobarbital and chloral hydrate in her body. It was suggested that the purple colon was a manifestation of an inflammatory response to barbiturates, possibly administered by enema. She had enemas frequently, as did other Hollywood stars. Again, following her death, there was a cover-up by the Los Angeles Police Department and the government.
Blondes and dumbness seem to go together. I think it all started with gentlemen prefer blondes.
You know, it's interesting that people associate, if you happen to have blonde hair.
Number 2, Keith Moon. Keith Moon's wild life hid a dark secret, a tragic accident that haunted him until his untimely death. Discover his story. Keith's dark side is hard to believe. No rock musician lived life to the fullest more so than Keith Moon. His chaotic drumming made him a legend, placing him second on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 greatest drummers, and was the driving force behind one of the greatest bands of the era, The Who. On January 4th, 1970, Moon and his entourage left a pub mobbed with skinheads that were harassing him. While trying to escape, Moon took the wheel of the car and accidentally ran over his friend and chauffeur, killing him. The judge cleared Moon of the 3 charges he pled guilty to: drunk driving, driving without a license, and driving without insurance, because of the circumstances at the pub. However, according to his friend, Larry Smith, the moment had an effect on the drummer. Smith said that Moon was shell-shocked. Moon's predictable demise finally came 8 years later, on September 7th, 1978. Moon was pronounced dead at the age of 32 from an overdose of heminoverdin.
When I went to get my ears tested, I thought it was really encouraging, apart from the fact he said I had. Terrible.
Number 1, Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper, Hollywood's original Hellraiser, tops our list. His legendary drug use led to some wild situations. For better or for worse, Hopper's drug use informed almost the entirety of his career. Whether he was tripping balls with Peter Fonda on the tomb of D.H. Lawrence, or telling David Lynch what kind of drugs his insane gangster character would be taking, Dennis Hopper earned the notorious title of Hollywood's original Hellraiser because of his infamous adventures under the influence of every drug available on the planet. From LSD to cocaine, Hopper was a connoisseur of all kinds of psychoactive substances which is why he ended up in bizarre situations all the time. He was the true psychedelic king of Hollywood. And there you have it, the 35 worst psychedelic addicts in Hollywood history. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Check out our other videos for more shocking Hollywood tales. See you next time.